There are people in this world who don't fully belong to either side of life's eternal equation. They're not creatures of pure light, nor are they consumed by the dark. They walk between. They exist in the tension, the paradox, the threshold. And maybe you are one of them. This video isn't for everyone. It's not for those who've chosen absolute clarity, nor for those who've surrendered completely to chaos. It's for the wanderers, the in-betweeners, the ones who felt like strangers in both the light and the dark. Because some of us weren't born to choose a side. We were born to understand both, to hold both in our hands and not be consumed by either. So how do you know if you're one of them? How do you recognize this strange calling that doesn't show up in textbooks or temples, but in the silence after a heartbreak, in the stillness before a leap, in the questions that keep you awake at 3 a.m.? There are signs, subtle, ancient, philosophical markers that have been whispered about for centuries. And today, I want to walk you through what I believe are the 7 signs that you were born to live between light and dark. But before we begin, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like your soul is a contradiction, yearning for peace, but drawn to chaos? Longing for love, yet fascinated by pain? Seeking truth, but comfortable in mystery? If so, you're not broken. You're bridging worlds. Let's explore what that means. The first sign is the most misunderstood. You're deeply empathetic, but strangely detached. You feel everything. The pain of others, the sorrow of strangers, the beauty in a bird's flight or a soft whisper. But at the same time, you often feel like you're watching life unfold behind a veil. You're in it, but not of it. This is what the philosopher Kierkegaard would call the night of infinite resignation, someone who loves life deeply, but lives with a kind of spiritual distance. Not because they don't care, but because they see the world through layers. You understand that joy is temporary, that pain holds wisdom, that everything beautiful eventually ends. And so you live with both your feet on the ground and your heart in the void. This isn't apathy. It's awakened ambiguity. The second sign, you carry a wound that never fully heals, but it becomes a source of insight.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
This wound could be emotional, spiritual, or existential. Maybe it came from a betrayal, a loss, a moment where the world broke its promise to you. And though time has passed, something inside still aches. But instead of avoiding it, you've learned to lean into it. You've discovered what Carl Jung called the wounded healer, the idea that we only truly understand others when we've first suffered ourselves. You use your pain not to seek vengeance or pity, but to see more clearly. It's like that wound opened your inner eye. Your sight cuts through illusions. You don't just see what people show you, see what they hide. And that's why people are drawn to you and sometimes fear you. You see too much. The third sign, you're not afraid of paradox. You live in it. Most people want clear answers. Good vs. evil, right vs. wrong, light vs. dark, but not you. You understand that life is not binary. That truth is often messy. That sometimes the most evil thing can lead to transformation and the most good intention can cause harm. You don't run from contradiction, you embody it. You can hold joy and grief in the same breath. You can love someone and still let them go. You can believe in fate and still take responsibility for your choices. You're not confused, you're complex, and you've made peace with that. Now I want to ask you something. When did you stop trying to make life make sense and start letting it unfold in its mystery? That shift is everything. The fourth sign, you're drawn to both creation and destruction. You love building things, ideas, relationships, dreams. But you're not afraid to tear them down when they no longer serve truth. You see impermanence not as a threat, but as a rhythm. You understand the wisdom of the Stoics, who taught that everything we love is temporary and to love it anyway. You don't cling, you evolve. And because of that, you're often the one who changes most in a group, the one who sheds old identities, who burns bridges with grace, who walks away not out of anger, but out of clarity. This makes you unpredictable, but it also makes you free. The fifth sign, you feel at home in silence, in solitude, in the spaces others avoid. You don't fear being alone. In fact, it's often in solitude that you feel most alive. You've had moments maybe while walking at night, or staring at the moon where everything just clicked. Not in words, but in knowing. You felt the universe breathe through you. You've touched something ancient in the stillness. This is not depression. This is what the mystics called the desert experience, a place where the soul meets itself without distraction. You've walked through the desert, and you've returned, changed. The sixth sign, you are a mirror. People project onto you. They idealize you, or they demonize you, but very rarely do they see you. Why? Because your presence reflects truth. Not truth as dogma, but truth as energy. People feel exposed around you, not because you judge them, but because you don't. And when someone doesn't judge you, you're forced to face yourself. You've noticed this. People either open up to you in strange, beautiful ways, or they pull away without explanation. You are a mirror, and mirrors make people uncomfortable. But mirrors are also sacred. And the seventh sign, you've always felt like you were meant for something, but you could never quite name it. It's not about fame. It's not about titles. It's not even about success. It's about purpose, but in a form most people wouldn't understand. You don't want to save the world. You want to understand it. You want to touch its essence and help others do the same. You want to be a bridge between realities. A translator of silence. A lighthouse for those lost in the fog. And that desire, that subtle, burning ache in your soul, that's the sign you were born to live between light and dark. Because only those who've touched both can guide others through the in-between. So what does all this mean? It means you are not here to conform. You are not here to simplify. You are here to illuminate the complexity of existence, to show that light needs shadow to define it, that suffering can be sacred, that silence can speak. You are a philosopher of the soul, a mystic in plain clothes, a warrior of nuance, and the path ahead of you is not easy, but it is holy. In the next part of this journey, we'll explore what it means to live as a bridge between light and dark. We'll dive deep into the ancient philosophy of duality, the psychological truths of the divided self, and the practical, everyday practices that help you balance your inner contradictions without being torn apart by them. If you're still here, then something deep inside of you already knows you are not meant to live on one side of the line. You are meant to walk it. You are not here to be purely enlightened or entirely lost. You're here to bridge the two, to live in the strange, sacred tension between clarity and chaos, between knowing and not knowing, between what is seen and what is felt. But how do you do that without being torn apart? That's the question we now face. Because living between light and dark isn't poetic, it's pressure. It's like walking a tightrope between two cliffs, with the winds of the world constantly trying to push you off balance. And the first truth we must accept is this: balance is not stillness. It is movement. Real balance is dynamic. It means constantly adjusting, shifting, listening, responding. You don't arrive at balance, you maintain it. Think of a dancer. They aren't frozen in place. They're moving, flowing, making micro adjustments every second to stay centered. That's your life. You are a dancer on the edge of the void. You are the still point in the storm. But to move like that, you need awareness. So let's begin where all balance does, with the inner observer. Who are you when you are not reacting? When you're not chasing pleasure or avoiding pain? When you're not performing for approval or shrinking from judgment? There is a part of you, silent, ancient, watching, that doesn't get pulled into extremes. That is your anchor. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So when chaos rises, don't resist it. Observe it. When clarity comes, don't cling to it. Observe it. This doesn't mean detachment from life, it means engagement without entanglement. And here's a hard truth: you will be misunderstood. Because most people want you to pick a side. They want you to be light so they can see you as safe. Or they want you to be dark so they can dismiss you as dangerous. But when you hold both, you become confusing. To them, yes, but not to yourself. Because in that confusion, there is a deeper harmony. A kind of rhythm that only the soul can hear. So how do we live that rhythm every day? We start with ritual. Not performance. Not religion. Ritual. The conscious, repeated return to the center. For some, it's meditation. For others, it's writing. For others, it's walking in nature, or sitting in silence, or staring into fire. The point is not what you do. The point is that you do it consistently, intentionally, reverently. Because when you live between light and dark, the world will constantly try to pull you off center. Ritual is how you return. And here's something else no one talks about. You must protect your energy like it's sacred currency. Because it is. When you live in extremes, you burn fast. But when you live between, you burn deep. And that depth needs fuel. So ask yourself, what drains you? Who drains you? Where are you leaking your power just to be accepted? Cut it off. Not out of cruelty, but out of devotion to your path. You are not meant to be everything to everyone. You are meant to be something specific to a few. And here's another paradox you must embrace. You will feel lonely, but you are never alone. Because the path of the in-between is walked by few. But those few, they are everywhere. You won't always recognize them with your eyes. But your soul will know. You'll feel it in a glance, in a sentence, in silence shared between two people who've both seen too much to speak freely. Those are your kin. Find them. Walk with them. Not in groups, but in resonance. And when you do, you'll realize something even deeper. You are not the bridge. You are the threshold. You are where light becomes dark and dark becomes light. You are the moment before the leap, the tension before the transformation. And because of that, your life will never be normal. You are here to interrupt patterns, or to question assumptions, to speak the unspeakable, or to feel the unfelt. You are here to remind the world of what it's forgotten. But that also means you must become fluent in contradiction. You must learn to hold two opposing truths without collapsing into despair. Like this, you are powerful and you are vulnerable. You are wise and you are still learning. You are light and you are dark. And when you can see those truths not as contradictions but as complements, you become whole. Wholeness is not perfection. Wholeness is integration. It is the marriage of opposites. It is the alchemy of paradox. And that is the highest form of balance. So let me ask you something. What parts of yourself have you rejected because they didn't fit the narrative of who you thought you were supposed to be? That question is the key. Because to live between light and dark, you must reclaim all of you, not just the polished parts. You must make peace with your anger. You must hold hands with your fear. You must honor your longing, even when it leads you off the beaten path. Because every part of you is part of the map. And speaking of maps, there is no map for this path. Only a compass. And that compass? It's your intuition, not your thoughts, not your emotions. Something deeper. The quiet knowing behind the noise. That's what you follow. Even when it leads you into uncertainty. Especially then, because uncertainty is the soil of transformation. And when you live in the in-between, you are constantly transforming. You are not here to arrive. You are here to evolve. So don't ask, when will I be finished? Ask instead, who am I becoming now? And then listen. In the final part of this journey, we'll explore the ultimate expression of the chosen one who lives between light and dark. We'll talk about legacy, impact, wisdom, and the quiet ways we change the world not by preaching, but by being. You'll learn how to embody your truth in the age of noise, how to inspire without controlling, and how to live fully without ever choosing a side. So we've walked the signs, we've walked the edge. Now we walk the world. Because what's the point of discovering that you're a chosen one, someone born to exist between light and dark, if you don't live it? This final stretch isn't about theory. It's about embodiment. It's about how you show up in the world, not as a role or a costume, but as a truth walking in human form. And here's the most radical truth of all. You don't need to change the world through force. You change it through presence. When you are fully yourself, unhidden, unfiltered, unafraid, you send out a vibration that rearranges reality. Not loudly, not aggressively, just powerfully. Because presence is energy that doesn't need explanation. It doesn't need to convince or convert or compete. It just is. And here's where it gets even deeper. Most people are chasing clarity. They want to be sure. They want to know. They want to be right. But you've learned to live in the unknown. You've made peace with paradox. You've stopped seeking certainty and started cultivating awareness. That is rare. And that is what makes you magnetic. Because people are tired of fake confidence. They're tired of shallow optimism. They're tired of being told what to think, how to feel, who to be. They are starving for authenticity. And when you walk into a room as someone who holds both light and dark in equal reverence, when you speak from your soul instead of your script, people feel it. They don't always know why, but they know something real just entered the space. And that's what changes them. Not your advice, not your answers, but your embodied paradox. So how do you live that way every day? You begin by trusting your frequency more than your words. You don't fake joy. You don't force peace. You become the space where all emotions can rise and fall without shame. You embody the truth that sadness is sacred, that anger can be clean, that confusion is part of the path. You walk through the world like a living permission slip for others to feel what they've buried. And slowly, without even trying, you become a quiet revolution. But here's what you must guard against: the expectation to explain yourself. Because the world will ask, who are you to speak this way? To live this way? To not pick a side? And your answer: you don't owe one. Because when you live between light and dark, your authority doesn't come from credentials. It comes from clarity earned in silence. You've faced your inner war. You've made peace with your contradictions. You've stood in the fire and didn't run. That's your credential. And those who've walked that path will recognize you instantly. So don't try to please the masses. Speak to the few who feel you in their bones, because those are the ones who are ready. You don't need 1,000,000 followers. You just need to be followed by truth. Now let's go even deeper. There's a myth in our culture that says power comes from domination, from control, from being the loudest voice in the room. But the chosen ones who live between light and dark, we know a different kind of power: soft power, resonant power. The kind of power that shifts someone's entire worldview with a single sentence. The kind of power that enters a broken system and plants a seed of chaos, not to destroy, but to reweave the structure from the inside. That's what you are. A seed of transformation. Not a sledgehammer. Not a savior. Just a presence that carries the code of a new way of being. And that code is wholeness. You don't preach perfection. You model integration. You don't tell people to escape their darkness. You show them how to listen to it. You don't offer easy answers. You offer better questions. So let me give you one now. What if you stopped trying to be understood and started being felt instead? What if your impact wasn't measured in applause, but in awakening? What if you spoke less and radiated more? These are not rhetorical questions. They are invitations. Because the final stage of the path isn't about transcending the world. It's about inhabiting it fully. Not as a saint, not as a rebel, but as a living paradox. Someone who laughs at the absurdity of life and weeps at its beauty. Someone who knows that light is sacred, but so is shadow. Someone who stops asking, "Am I good or bad?" and starts asking, "Am I true?" Truth is the only side you ever need to pick. And when you do that, when you show up with your shadows integrated, your chaos channeled, your light undistorted, you become the rarest kind of human. You become real. And realness? That's the revolution the world didn't know it was waiting for. So go live as that. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Now. Walk through this world as someone who's made peace with the in-between. Speak from the place that holds both love and grief. Create from the well where silence drinks from sound. And when people ask you what you are, smile gently. Tell them, I am the edge where the light kisses the dark. I am the breath between questions. I am the fire that doesn't burn. I am the paradox, and I am still becoming. Because the truth is this, you were never meant to fit into their boxes. You were born to dissolve them. You were never meant to choose a side. You were born to live between. And now you know. So go be that. Fully. Unapologetically. Eternally.